Hi, everyone. How's it going? Okay, so it took me several days to come back because let me go live on Facebook and on Instagram before I start talking. One moment, please. Thank you for your patience. Okay. All right. So we are now live on Instagram. Hello, Facebook group. How are you all doing? And move this over, get back over here to StreamYard so I can see it. So it took me several days to get back, which is what I was trying to explain because your girl was taking a Linux class. If you don't know what Linux is, please Google it, Linux. Today is the last day. And we had several quizzes, exams, final, and it was good. I've never thought of myself as being the black and white person looking at coding or scripting, however you want to word it, type person. But my brain kind of works like it works against the grain of what I always heard growing up, which is like you multitask and you don't get anything done. Um, and maybe that's different than someone who can pick up different skill sets and do them well. Because once I learned the skill set, I was like, oh, well, this makes complete sense. And you just do da da da, and then this pops up. And when you do this pops up. But it just took practice. So that was a summer class that I took, and it took a lot of time. And this last week, I just did not even really engage with social media that much. I may have done a post here and there, but I didn't do any lives. And I really wanted to. Every day I thought about it and every day I tried. And then I would just fall asleep, like, boom, done, out. Because it's mentally exhausting, mentally draining for me. Although it is a super powerful skill to know because so much runs on Linux, more than many people know or realize. So it's a super wonderful skill to have. But because it's not a passion of mine, it's not something that I do and I can do it for hours and the time just flies by and I don't even realize it, then it's mentally exhausting for me. My brain is working on it and trying to figure it out. Whereas something like designing a WordPress website, I can do that for hours on end and it doesn't even bother me. Talking to y'all about what I'm passionate about, I can do that for hours on end and it doesn't exhaust me. It's more, hi Sierra, it's more energizing. And I don't put down anybody who works on Linux, any administrators, any, sysadmins, all you people. More power to you. I bow down to you because I asked my professor, I said, what types of jobs could you get with these Linux skills? Not what type of jobs, what is the day in the life like? And he said, typically you're troubleshooting all day. Like you're troubleshooting things that go on the back end that the user on the front end never sees. They never know. So it was probably one of the more intense classes I've taken since taking the Security Plus class that I took in order to get my Security Plus certification. So I love tech. I heart tech always. And I think that's just a part of who I'll always be. But I'm also very artistic in my own way. And I'm also very passionate about certain things like what I'm going to talk to you about tonight. And that is going forward in more of Rachel Rogers' book about we should all be millionaires and really the US's view of money and the classism and the statuses and how there are systemic processes against women of color, against blacks, against black women, more so than probably black men, and definitely black women more so than against the white woman and the white man and all those different types of things. So I just want to take, and I'm going to set myself a timer. I'm going to take just 15 minutes and read some of this book. And it's, we've gotten through the introduction. Yes, we only did the intro. We hadn't even hit chapter 1 yet. So all that juicy content I've given you in other videos that you can see on my social media pages, that was just the introduction because Rachel Rogers goes in deep and she comes out with the stats and all of that. So she ends the intro talking about Madam C.J. Walker. And I'm just going to go into chapter 1 a little bit thereafter. And I implore you to really, really, really stop and get this book, whether you read the hard copy or you get the ebook or you do the Audible. I always do two. I almost always do an Audible, and then I get a virtual or a hard copy book to go and highlight while I'm reading or listening to the Audible. Excuse me. And then afterwards, when I go back and read it another time, like, where was that part where she said X, Y, and Z? And I'll go back and reread like the whole chapter or whatnot. So this is a darn good book. And I know she's got a whole society that you can join. And I implore you, Rachel Rogers, go find out all about her programs and how to get her coaching and how to be a part of her mentorship, because I'm sure it'll be awesomely worth it. I think I heard someone say it's either a 4-digit or a 5-digit number to be a part of her. I'm sure of her mastermind, it's probably a 5 or 6-digit number. But to be a part of her program, I believe it's like a 4-digit or 5-digit number. So go out there and get as much of her tutelage as you possibly can, because this book was just not the beginning of me knowing about Rachel Rogers. I've heard about her from Terry Ijoma. I've heard about her from Forbes. I've heard about her from different nuggets have been dropped probably over the last 3 years. And I just didn't fully grasp who she was or what her story was about. And when you get the Audible, it's super cool because it's Rachel reading it. And that's just even more awesome, because her tone of voice and how she speaks about certain things and where she gets more passionate and where she kind of, leans back or whatnot. It's good to hear it in her voice. So, so I'm going to take 15 minutes, read some of this to you all. And I'm trying to see if I have a timer somewhere on screen. Okay. All right. So looks like this live will be a little bit over 20 minutes. And hopefully you all will get some great content from it. And just know that you can connect with me. The best place to really contact me is going to be in the DMs. You can comment on here all day and I may get back to you. Full disclaimer. I have 3 children. They are 3 years old, 5 years old, 7 years old. I am a human. I have a whole spirituality journey that I'm on. So if you look at some of my socials, you probably see me, talking about the stuff that I'm going through in my Bible and my commentary. And you just heard me say I'm taking a Linux class. So I'm taking college courses. My life is very, 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 very full. So I don't stay in my comments. I do not stay in my comments. If you want to reach out to me, please DM me. That is the absolute best way to get a hold of me. If you want to, send a message to my business phone, that is 214-463-4922. And I check that probably twice a day. Then of course on my socials, just DM me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram, and I'll be happy to get with you all. So let's go ahead and we'll get into this content. And we last spoke about, sorry, my screen froze a little bit. So, okay. So Madam CJ Walker she had a conference on the final day of the convention, rather. Madam Walker's theme was women's duty to women, and she encouraged her sales representatives to become community leaders and agents of change. She gave prizes to the women who had sold the most products, as well as those who had contributed the most to charity. That's huge. At the end of the convention, attendees sent a telegram to President Woodrow Wilson, urging him to support legislation that would make lynching a federal crime. I remember that. That's where we stopped. So in 16 years, Madam CJ Walker went from struggling washerwoman to notable businesswoman and millionaire. Not only did she build wealth for herself, but she trained more than 20,000 sales agents who were also able to become wealthy women who gave back. She was politically active, delivering lectures, organizing demonstrations, and even visiting the White House. She made large financial contributions to build a YMCA in a Black community in Indianapolis, to the Scholarship Fund for the Tuskegee Institute, to the NAACP's Anti-Lynching Fund, and to countless other social, educational, and arts institutions that benefited and advanced the lives of Black people. Madam Walker left us an inspiring legacy. She taught us that being a millionaire is not just about stunting in your new whip with your girls, which Madam definitely enjoyed doing. It's also about empowering others, charitable giving, and being a politically active citizen. Madam CJ Walker had every excuse not to become a millionaire. She was born to slaves. She was poor. She was Black. She was an orphan. She was widowed. She was a single mother. She was abused and cheated on. She lived in an unsafe neighborhood. She had 3 months of formal education. She experienced racism and sexism and violence. She was the sole breadwinner. She was accused of stealing. Her name was sullied among her peers. She was disenfranchised. The government passed laws to limit her access to success. And despite all these reasons, she still got results. I love the way Rachel wrote that. Despite all of those things, she still got results. I mean, that lights me on fire in 500 million ways. Single mom, abused, born from slaves, experienced sexism, racism, violence, like all the things you can possibly think of. And she was like, you're not going to take this from me. Devil, you ain't stealing my joy. Like, I got this. I got this. I'm going to press on. And if you see the movie that Octavia Spencer was in, there was a point in time where I think her lab burned down too. And she had to rebuild. She had to figure it out. And, you know, I think that's something that as women, we do super phenomenally well. We figure shit out. We figure it out. You just got to go figure it out. You can't sit there and say, oh, no, you got to figure it out. So if Madam C.J. Walker could become a millionaire, then you can certainly become a millionaire now, Rachel Rodgers says. You see, we don't need perfect childhoods, fair governments, or lots of money to become millionaires. The only thing we really need is the belief that we can. And some basic blueprints wouldn't hurt either. I believe Madam's commitment to practicing self-care, her refusal to accept the station to which society had relegated her, and her belief in her own vision, ideas, creativity, and intelligence were the keys to her freedom, the keys to her power, and the keys to her wealth. And these are the keys that we will explore together throughout this book. So let's begin by looking at the stories you tell yourself. Ooh, y'all, is about to get so good when I tell you how Rachel breaks down the millionaire mindset and the broke mindset. She about to break it down. So I don't know if I'm gonna read this whole book. Y'all will have to tell me in the DMs if you want me to continue reading this book. But the girl breaks stuff down. And it's just stuff that if you haven't done it, you haven't experienced it, you know somebody who has. You know somebody who's done some of these exact same things, exact things. So let's begin by looking at the stories you tell yourself. Let's replace stories of weakness, unworthiness, and failure with your $1 million story. So chapter 1, part 1, $1 million behavior. Chapter 1, $1 million story. First, forget inspiration. Habit is more dependable. Habit will sustain you whether you're inspired or not. Habit will help you finish and polish your stories. Inspiration won't. Habit is persistence in practice. Quote by Octavia Butler. All right. Now, Octavia Butler, phenomenal, another great author. Everybody go get all her stuff, read it, take notes in it, do what I do. This is when I read a book, this is the closest book I have to me right now. So I'm not trying to, I ain't trying to do nothing about making you become the Christian that I am. I like to say believer. I like to say believer. But anyway, but this is what I do when I read. First of all, the only reason why this Bible book has all of these things is because it's not one of those Bibles that has the little thumb things where you can see the beginning of the name of the book. And so I wanted an easier way to get to each book. And so I created my own tabs. Super nerdy, I know. But this is what I do when I read. Can you see? See how I always put the date. And then I just like note it up. Like there's notes everywhere. Oh, there's a good one. That's a good page. See that? Stuff will come to me while I'm reading, and I'm just noting. I'm notating stuff. Is that the right word? Somebody figure it out. You know, y'all gonna be correcting people. Let me just use all the Ebonics so I can get all the people correcting. No, that was not correct. That is not what the quote says. The quote is a quote, okay? Can we just say that on the last video I did? The quote is a quote from a human being who is not by any means anybody that walks on water. So if I mess up their quote, I'm just another human being who doesn't walk on water. It's okay. It's all right. The people got the message. I think the majority of y'all got the message because the majority of y'all weren't biting about it. Okay, so anyway, here we go. So you can see how I write in the margins, I write everywhere, I make notes. I always put the date because I also like to go back and see, oh, when did I first read this? That's pretty interesting. So right now, um, I'm pretty deep in this book right now. And I'm deep in the commentary too. So that's what I do when I read. And if you get any of Octavia Butler's stuff, you're probably going to be doing the same thing. Rachel Rogers stuff, you're probably going to be doing the same thing. Any great author that has some really good things to say, Zig Ziglar, Napoleon Hill, golly, Grant Cardone. Oh my gosh, if you get any of his books, go through and just all of it is good. It's all good. So anyway, going back to the book. So chapter 1, $1 Million Story. You are living in a financial prison of your own making. We women are in jail. Our thoughts and beliefs about what our work, time, and energy are worth keep our bank account small and our imposter syndrome large. We don't recognize how worthy we are. Why is that? Why don't women recognize their worth? Why don't more women pursue epic wealth? Is it because we are the weaker sex? Hell no. Is it because I should say heaven no. I said I was going to start saying heaven. Heaven no. Is it because we're just not good with money? Hogwash. Is it a part of our womanhood to not pursue wealth with the fervor that men do? Nope. The answer is that we are all products of our environment, an environment that is uniquely designed to keep money out of our Kate Spade top grain leather wallets. I remember the moment I decided I was going to become a millionaire. I didn't actually use those words at the time because I was in high school and I didn't even know what a millionaire was. Everyone around me was just trying to survive. Moms working their 9-to-5 office jobs and trying to keep their cool while working for horrible bosses. Kids trying not to get into a fight on their way to school. They just wanted to graduate from high school on time. Drug addicts walking aimlessly up and down the street, eyes glazed over, looking for their next opportunity to get high. On 45th Avenue, it felt like everyone around me was just trying to make it. But I believed that my life could be different. I knew I was smart and figured my intelligence and good grades could be the tickets towards a better life, because that's the story we all were sold, Rachel. One where our lights didn't go out a couple times a year, and I never worried about where my next meal was coming from. As a biracial Black girl, she says, growing up in lower middle class Queens, I did not see a lot of examples of wealth, but I did see a few. Aunt Shelley. There was Aunt Shelley on the Black side, my father's sister, the oldest girl of 9 children in the Lowry clan. She lived in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and drove a Jaguar. Go Aunt Shelley. She owned her own home, and it had a formal dining room and a big backyard with what felt like acres of green grass. It was in a nice part of town. My sister and I would visit during brief escapes from the busy, dirty, loud city, and we'd spend time giggling and playing with her 2 girls, our cousins, Renee and Jennifer. I had no idea what Aunt Shelley and Uncle Scrappy, her husband, did for a living, but I knew it must be important. I could tell by the big, fluffy cushions on their gold sectional couch, by the sound system out of which she would play Earth, Wind, and Fire, and by the amount of food in their fridge. Aunt Shelley played no games. She used to put us in the tub and scrub us down. I was sheepish about her seeing me naked, but she did not care. I was going to get a good cleaning. No kid was going to bed filthy in her house. She would comb and grease and braid our hair, too. So not only did Aunt Shelley accept no BS, make good money, and own her own home, she also took exceptional care of her girls, including my sister and me when we visited. When there was a financial crisis in the family, if there were expensive funeral fees to be paid or a family member who needed to go to rehab, my Aunt Shelley got the call and often covered some of the costs. As a kid, I heard her scolding her younger siblings about the financial messes that occurred and that they typically were unable to contribute to cleaning up. I could tell Aunt Shelley and her husband had a level of financial freedom that my family did not have. It was literally in the air. You can just tell when someone was worrying about the light bill and when they weren't. Financial security is palpable. Aunt Shelley was a millionaire in my eyes. Aunt Barbara. Then there was Aunt Barbara on the white side, my mother's sister. Aunt Barbara used to come to visit us and get us girls in line. I remember her saying I was as slow as molasses. Girl, I used to hear that from my aunties too. Hey, Jan, if you watching, girl. Slow as molasses. Will y'all come on? While she hustled me through the morning routine. She did not tolerate my sister and me fighting and carrying on. Just like Aunt Shelley, she was no nonsense. Do you see a pattern here? Do you see a pattern? Do you see a pattern? Okay. I'm just now realizing that I had some powerful women in my life as a child. Now I know why I'm like this. But I digress, Rachel says. While Aunt Barbara might have been a bit of a hard ass when it came to our upbringing, she was also kind. She sent us a birthday card with a $50 check enclosed every year like clockwork. Even when I was 35 years old, she still sent me a birthday card and check with "Happy birthday, Rachel" written in the memo. She never forgets about me or my sister. When my mother was having a really hard time after my father passed, it was my Aunt Barbara that I called for help. She arrived a few days later to take care of us, bring some order to our household, and support my mother. And when I exhausted all my financial aid options and still had a $6,500 balance of tuition in my junior year of college, it was my Aunt Barbara who wrote me a check and kept the party going. Wouldn't it be great to give back to people like that? Yes. Like just write it. Just write it. Somebody told me a long time ago, especially with family, just give it. Don't even expect it back. Just give it. So anywho, it took me a long time to finally pay that loan back. I love visiting Aunt Barbara and Uncle Tommy's house. They lived in a beautiful suburb in Long Island. They had a sparkling clean home with a guest room and a big tree for Christmas. I enjoyed wrapping presents with my Uncle Tommy and laughed when he made crude jokes that embarrassed my aunt. They always brought us beautiful gifts, lamb's wool sweaters and nice pajamas, the kind of expensive things our parents would not buy us and we wouldn't think to ask for, but that were lovely to receive. When my Aunt Barbara and Uncle Tommy retired, they moved farther out on Long Island to the Hamptons and had the beach in their backyard. Come on, Aunt Barbara. My jaw dropped the first time I walked into their new home and saw the stunning view of the ocean from their living room. Dream. That, yes, all of that. At their house, we ate Death by Chocolate ice cream and talked about life. Uncle Tommy was a union worker at Madison Square Garden and got us tickets to quality shows like WrestleMania and Billy Joel concerts. I have no idea what my Aunt Barbara did for a living, but I knew with certainty that they were millionaires. Alana. And then there was Alana. Alana was a 12-year-old Jewish girl who lived in Little Neck, New York, Alana's after-school companion. My job was to pick Alana up from school and walk her home through the tree-lined streets filled with hilltop mansions. Come on now. Then I would give her a snack and entertain her while her father worked in his home office upstairs. When I met Alana's mother, she told me how beautiful I was and was so incredibly kind. Working for their family was my introduction to nice, rich people. They definitely exist. I remember her mom telling me to eat whatever I wanted. Every day after school, I would open up the fridge, freezer, and pantry and ask Alana which of the snack options she wanted. There were many. I was amazed by how much food they had in their kitchen with only 3 people living there. They had the frozen pizza bagels and egg rolls that I always wanted to get from the grocery store, but my mom wouldn't let me. They had Pop-Tarts, ice cream sandwiches, and those cracker sandwiches with cheese or peanut butter. Alana and I snacked a lot. Sometimes we would play hide and seek to pass the time, and it was very easy to get lost in their house. It had so many rooms. There was a fancy dining room with upholstered chairs and a long polished wood table that no one ever seemed to eat at. The house had 2 living rooms, and I could barely figure out how to work their complicated TV. The house also had a large playroom in the basement filled with Alana's many toys. And then upstairs, Alana's bedroom had a large tent she liked to hide in, a big, beautiful dollhouse, and pink ruffles everywhere. Alana's childhood was basically the opposite of mine. Where my house lacked food, space, I shared a tiny bedroom with my older sister, and toys, this house was teeming. This encounter with such abundance let me know that wealth was possible. And it was a reminder of the abundance we had in my early childhood. You see, we didn't always live a life of struggle, and you shouldn't have to live a life of struggle, Jesus. There was a time in my childhood when I thought my parents were rich. She goes on to talk about my mother, Rachel says. One of the most vivid memories of my childhood is going to Macy's on Saturdays with my mother and sister. I was about 7 or 8 years old, and I remember coming out of the train station and carefully crossing the big boulevard where there were frequent accidents. My mother wore her electric blue leather coat that she had treated herself to a few months earlier and held our hands tightly as we made our way across the street to Queens Center Mall. Every single Saturday morning, my mom, sister, and I would head to Queens Center to buy clothes or other things the family needed. Every Saturday, my mother would purchase a treat for my sister and me. We would always get new shoes, a new dress, or maybe some new hair bows and earrings from Claire's Accessories. Us girls loved our Saturday shopping trips. It wasn't so much the new stuff we would buy, although that was nice, but it was the feeling of fun and adventure and having my mom's attention. It was the fact that these shopping dates were our special girls' time. It was the lack of struggle. Those 2 words in a sentence together. Lack of struggle. This was 1989, a short, plentiful chapter for the Lowry family. This chapter included one of the only family vacations we ever took. We piled into the car and drove 8 hours to Virginia Beach. We stayed at the Howard Johnson's right on the water, and my mother and I wore matching green and white striped bathing suits. We spent our days in the hotel pool or in the ocean. We spent our evenings walking the boardwalk, browsing shops, and eating at restaurants. One night, we decided to do a haunted fun house that had masked killers and deranged clowns jumping out at us at every turn. The spooky music and strategically placed mirrors added to the horror. I remember crouching on the floor, terrified, and screaming for my father to come get me halfway through. I got separated from my family because I was too scared to walk by another threatening character. I'm still scarred from that depraved funhouse, but you know what? We were on vacation, and damn it, we had fun. This short-lived abundance era included my parents buying their first real estate. We moved from our one-bedroom apartment on Bound Street, Bowne, Bound Street, where my sister and I shared the bedroom, and my parents slept on a pull-out couch in the living room, to a two-bedroom condo in a nicer building on 45th Avenue. The building was called the Jefferson, and like the Jeffersons, we were moving on up. All right, my timer just went off, y'all. So I'm going to stop it right there. I'm going to highlight it. If you want me to continue reading on from this book, We Should All Be Millionaires, by the dear, awesome, phenomenal Rachel Rogers, and owner of Hello 7 multi-million-dollar company, I am happy to. I am very, very happy to continue reading this because I've listened to the Audible. I've gone through and highlighted this book for my own self-study. I'm happy to share it with you all. Just DM me and tell me if you want to watch it. And hello, Christine. Hello, Lachey. Hello, Stephanie. Hi. Is that Kay? Hi, Kay. So thank you all for chiming in and joining. And if you have any questions whatsoever, again, DMing me is going to be the best way to reach out to me. Okay. So to my Facebook members, my Facebook group members, thank you so much for chiming in and joining in tonight. Instagram, LinkedIn, and my other Facebook crew, thank you all for listening in. Again, if you have any questions about this book, or whether or not you want me to continue reading from this book, do DM me. And you'll be seeing often, I'll be posting on my page, because some things are about to really, really, really ramp up about student loans, and all the changes that are going to be happening with the different administrations that are coming through. Biden, Harris are about to be like dropping all kinds of things because they just really, 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 really want to get those votes from Miss Harris. So be looking out for that stuff. And if you need some one-on-one time to talk about those things and really figure out the best strategy for you and your student loans, DM me and I will send you the link, and you can book some time to get on my calendar, and we can hash that out. Okay. So you all have a great rest of your night. And thank you so much for chiming in. I do hope to see you in the DMs on any social media platform. And until the next time, and I hope that's tomorrow or the next day, now that my class is done and finals are over for the summer, definitely I will come back and give you some content. If you want me to continue reading this book, then let me know that you want me to continue reading this book. Otherwise, I will bring you some other content from other sources about student loans and about grant funding, interest-free funding, nonprofits, small businesses, all of that. Okay? All right. You all have a good night, and I'll see you next time. Hugs.